up and talk, but you've come here, you've put it together, you've contacted especially the people that came last time, so thank you so much for bringing it together. And I'm looking forward to building a bit of a community with you guys because well, we've got a special connection. We met before the federal election and we've met now. So we're here to talk about everything elections, whether it's the US and whether it's Australia, whether it's Victoria or New South Wales. But let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. But first I'll introduce myself. My name's Jammal, especially for those of you listening online that maybe don't know me. I run Turning Point Australia, which is dedicated to educating people about putting the power back in your hands so we can actually get some results and where our politicians have a little bit more fear in the people. I really want politicians to remember where the power lies, and it is with the people. And I think people have forgotten that. I think people have forgotten the power that is in them and that they actually are meant to be answering to you. And so I've been over the last year, providing a lot of information about elections, how to kick people out. We've had a lot of success in the federal election in defunding the major parties, and we'll talk a bit about that. But today will be more about New South Wales, a bit about what we're doing in Victoria and to get rid of Dan Andrews. But I want to get the elephant in the room out of the way. The US, the midterm elections, we're all thinking about it. Was it good? Was it bad? It's a mixed bag. So for those of you that don't know, they've got a lower house and they've got an upper house there. It's looking like they will definitely win the lower house. Nancy Pelosi has been fired from the Speaker of the House. Can we just acknowledge that it's hilarious that Aussies know who the Speaker of the House is and we detest them? The people in Melbourne had the exact same cheer when I was there. So she's been fired. She's no longer the third in line to be the president. It's now Kevin McCarthy. In the Senate, it was a much tighter race. It's looking like they are on track, the Republicans, the right-wingers there, to get at least 51 seats. There are some races like Georgia, which we'll be waiting on. It's one of the swing states from the 2020 election. Very dubious, a lot of problems there. They've got another runoff election. What happened was there's 3 people that ran, including a Libertarian. And when they all run, what they do is they take one person off because it was really close. And now in a couple of weeks or a month, they'll have another election with the Republican and the Democrat to see who wins. That might decide which way the Senate goes. But Carrie Lake, the governor that's running, she's very Trumpian. Trump endorsed her, an absolute firebrand, gives it to the media, tells it as it is, been fighting for election integrity. I hope I see her either as the vice president or the president one day. And it's looking like she's on track to win. And I haven't had time to look at the American politics so much because I've been focusing on the Australian politics with Victoria. But I've been following Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA. I'm not just saying that because I'm from Turning Point Australia, but he did a 10-hour stream on election day, and I don't know how he did it. He didn't get off the entire time. And he delves deep into the stats. When everyone was saying Carrie Lake was out of it, he was saying no. I know Arizona, I know exactly where the votes are, and he delved deep into it. So that was really fascinating to watch that. And it's looking like she's on track to actually win that. So she's going to be a great addition to the freedom movement in America, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens there. But the Senate, we'll see what happens. It looks like they did fix up voter fraud in Wisconsin, in Nevada. Those 2 states were a little bit shaky in the 2020 presidential election. And it looks like they've done pretty well in Arizona, but there are some things they need to sort out. So it's very strange that I'm starting an Australian presentation to you guys, and I'm talking to you about American politics, but everyone's hand went up. And I understand that, it's inspiring what's been going on over there. It's larger than life. It's a country of 320 million people. That's where the leader of the free world supposedly is meant to come from. And we're very much inspired from the Americans. And so I don't think it's a shallow statement to say to the Americans out there, some of which, believe it or not, they're actually tuning in, to say, God bless you, our prayers are with you, and we're definitely watching and being inspired by what you guys are doing over there. So thank you, the Americans. Moving into Australian elections, when it comes to what I do, as I said before, education. I lost my job in 2020. I used to work in construction. I did labouring. I laid bricks, I did steel tying, concreting, and then I went on to move on to property development, a bit of a white-collar job as an assistant development manager. And the only reason I bring that up is because I want you guys to understand my background. I love this area. It's awesome up here in Charmhaven. And I really love the down-to-earth people. I was saying to Kylie before that if my car were to break down in this area, I'd probably get a lot more help than if I was in Sydney from just random people coming up and stopping by. And so I really like the social fabric you guys have built here in the community. And I understand that you guys have an element of respect for people that are down to earth, particularly those that were in the trades industry and the building industry. And so I lost my job in mid-2020 due to the lockdowns, not because of the mandates, because we didn't have the jab yet. And I was very much upset by what had happened, and I could see what was coming down the line. So I decided to keep going with a bit of a hobby, follow politics, and explain to people, one, why are the things happening that's happening? Two, why do the politicians not represent us anymore? And three, how can we kick them out of Parliament and kick them out of our lives, frankly, because government's gotten too big. And so that's where we are today, 2 years later. Thanks to people donating to me, thanks to people doing that, I didn't have to go back to the construction industry, and that's why I'm here today to give you 6, I believe, game-changing projects, some of which helped us in the federal election, defund the major parties, but ones that are, especially the new ones, you're going to like them, for this particular election. So the first project I want to talk to you guys about is the volunteer funnel. Very, very awesome, very cool. One of the problems we found in the federal election was that these major parties, they have all this funding, and they can afford to pay people $250 a day for these specific elections. And so what I thought was the Turning Point Australia audience, it's roughly 300,000 people across all the platforms, so there's a bit of double up. But what we wanted to do was channel that into the freedom parties. Now what you can see here, and all the examples you see here today, these are the Victorian parties, so don't freak out if you don't see your favourite freedom party. What we basically took was we took a very simple form, you fill it out, and you basically put your name, your number, your email, and you select the parties that you want to share that information with, and it goes out to them in an email, and just they can see it. That helps us connect you guys with them, and that helps a lot of the people that aren't like you, perhaps, to actually find a party that they agree with. And it allows us to have a bit of an equal footing with the major parties, so that we can connect people together. The volunteer funnel, it gets these parties, it connects our candidates on an even footing with these major parties. The next project I've got, I should probably go to the start and actually show you guys all the projects first. There's the educational graphics. There's the politician transparency reports. You guys are going to love that. The how to vote cards, which show people how to number their votes. The regional preference flowcharts, which is just a Victorian thing. And there's also securing the vote, which is training scrutineers. I've explained the volunteer funnel. For those of you listening online, and by the way, there's almost 300 people listening online, give this a share, get it out there. 300 viewers, if you guys share it, that ends up equating to over 10,000 people. So please give it a share, get it out there, because I know there's going to be a lot of people that want to see this. This is the policy matrix graph. Now, I know you guys can't quite see it. This will change for New South Wales, but this is the Victorian version. So you've got the freedom parties along the top. There's about 9 of them. And on the left side, you've got all of these different policies, whether it be freedom concerns, environmental concerns, energy, development and planning, public health and well-being. And what these particular projects are here for is to actually educate people on where people land. I felt that this was the best way to show that the Freedom Party should be working together. As you can see, there's a sea of green on the left and a sea of red on the right with the major parties. And people can see very clearly, hang on, we agree on the fundamentals here. Maybe one day you should all merge, firstly. But also, this is great for people when you're out there. If you want to print some of these out, these are great to show people and say, hey, this is what your party stands for. This is what the Liberal Party has been doing to you. They want to limit your freedom. They want to limit your freedom of movement, speech, religion. And I think that they should be put out to turf. And so that's probably the first one. There's also a QR code. I hate QR codes. Don't get me wrong. But this just shows you this is for the more mainstream people. It makes them feel at home when they see a QR code. And they scan it, and it takes them to the Turning Point Australia website. By the way, all of these resources can be found at the link in the description, guys, for you listening online. But for those of you in the audience, tpaust.com.au, nice and easy. Everything's there. It's all been geared around the Victorian election. The next graphic also has a QR code at the top right. It's I can hear this. I can hear the laughs in the audience. This basically just shows all the parties from left to right, based on freedom, based on ethics, morals, and obviously we've got all these freedom parties on the right, and sort of the more socialist, like the Victorian socialists on the far left as well. And so this is, again, you could obviously, don't get too caught up in the minutiae of, oh, you know, I think this freedom party probably should be the best one and not that one. Don't get caught up in the minutiae of it. This is for average people out there who don't know politics to understand, okay, this is the general flow. Stay away from these parties. And as Kylie and others were saying to me before, some people were saying, oh, we voted independents. It's like, no, not the teal independents. They're over here. They're on the wrong side. You know, we've got to be voting for the ones on the right-hand side, on the right-hand side of history. The next project, oh my gosh, you guys are going to love this. You guys are going to love this. All right, so I've put a lot of work into this. So, and I think the website might be shut down because of this. This is the first time I'm explaining this in front of an audience. So what you do is you go to the Turning Point website, you put your address in, don't worry, we don't keep the information, and it spits out a political transparency report on your Member of Parliament. And it tells you what they've been up to, what they've been voting on, and what some of their comments have been during the pandemic. And so we're rolling this out for the elections. I knew you guys would like this, because you guys get it. These people, I'm trying not to swear, but they've been getting away with all of this nonsense because you're busy. It takes 2 incomes to raise one child, let alone 2 or 3 or 4 children. And we've been so blindsided by them, you know, we don't understand how the system works. I mean, let's look at this for a second. I am a 25-year-old explaining to you guys how the system works. I don't blame you guys for not knowing it. I blame these guys. They designed it in a way, and it takes 2 incomes. Once upon a time, we didn't need 2 incomes to support a family. You're too busy to find this information out. So this is an easy tool to deliver to you guys, nice and simple. It's all, you've got the Member of Parliament's face, you've got the, sorry, Tim Smith, like, I'm sorry. You've got their name, whether they're recontesting their seat, and this isn't filled in yet, because obviously it wouldn't have fit on here, but we've got all the different details about what they've been up to, what bills they were voting for, and the goal is eventually, by the time we get to, you know, state and federal and local elections, the goal is to eventually have that for your local, your state, and your federal members. So we know exactly what they've been up to. Now it's a big job, massive job, huge research. We run off donations. This wouldn't have happened without volunteers. So we're rolling it out every election. So you could imagine Dan Andrews, it's as long as your arm, and we had to prioritize, let's put it that way. We had to prioritize what made it on the card. But Victoria, of all the states, this was the perfect tool to roll it out. There's so much crap in their system. There's so much corruption, nepotism. It's just disgusting, and it needs to be exposed. So for those of you listening online, if you like this, give this a share, get it out there. And thank you to the donors that helped us bring this together, because this would not have happened. And it's not a cheap endeavor keeping everything online like the website. So that's the first part of this. It actually gets cooler. So the second part is we are weaponizing the collective knowledge of you guys, because under the card, it is, have we missed anything about your member? And now, obviously, there's a standard of proof. We're not out to defame people. What we already have are things that they've voted on in Parliament, that's public record, and the other things that make it are things that have been written in the mainstream media. So news articles from The Age, from The Guardian, and someone shoot that bird.
It's actually called a rainbird. It's pretty sad.
Is it?
It happens to have been a rain here.
Oh, there you go. Other side of the rainbow. For this particular project, and before the politicians get any ideas about suing us, it's all public knowledge. It's how members of Parliament have voted, and it's just public knowledge in the articles. So they've got to sue Parliament, or they've got to sue the articles that were written. They can't come after us. So, before they get any ideas. But this right here is going to it's going to tap into the collective knowledge of you guys, because it has an attachment feature. So if you have anything in terms of a link, in terms of a document that can tell us a bit about what's going on in your electorate, we will review it, and it will probably make the cut, and it will appear on the card the next day. And so I'm really looking forward to rolling that out. I think it's going to be a game changer in this country. I think it's refreshing to be able to say to people, this is something that we want to flip the script on the parliamentarians. We want to inflict a bit of fear into them. I'm not inciting violence. I'm just saying we pay our taxes and we pay your wages. And I think that we need a bit more intellectual honesty here. The next project, slightly similar. It's one we've already done in the past. It's the how to vote cards. Now, these particular cards did very well federally. We got 250,000 downloads, and that translates into defunding the major parties by $1.4 million. Now, that's not my success. We provided the tool. That's people like Kylie. That's people like you in the audience that shared it, that screenshot it, that printed it out. You're legends. You guys did this. And you helped, because what happened, I should probably explain. What happens is your vote is actually worth something. In the lower house, in the federal election, it was worth $2.90 for your first vote. And for the upper house, it was about the same. And so what happens is when you vote, you're funding these parties. And so by getting 250,000 downloads for these cards and spreading out to your community, what it did was it diverted that $1.4 million away from the parties, so it defunded the major parties, and it diverted it towards your freedom parties that you know and you like and you trust. And that's exactly what's been going on in this state. We got 107,000 downloads in this state. That's huge. And in the other states as well. And that's a project we're rolling out in Victoria. You've got the lower house up there, and you've got the upper house along here as well. And New South Wales is slightly different in terms of how we number the cards compared to Victoria. But really useful tool. Literally, you just put in your address. It spits out an image. You screenshot the image. You share it to your family, your friends that don't understand what's going on. And it's really, really handy. I'm tossing up whether to explain this next concept to you or not, based on relevance. In Victoria, they have it pretty tough. The way they're set up. So federally, federally for the federal election in I think it was in May this year. There's the lower house and there's the upper house. In the lower house, it's segmented in at roughly 100,000 people per electorate. And that's those little sort of areas. And then in the upper house, it's segmented by state. And so you combine the votes for the upper house. In Victoria, it works slightly differently. You've got your electorates, but rather than voting and collecting all the votes together, in Victoria, they have it segmented in regions. And so what's happened in Victoria, and this isn't a problem here, what's happened in Victoria is there's been this guy and there's been a few people, and they've been trading preferences around, and they've been selling people's votes, essentially. Now, and this is why I'm not sure whether I should tell you guys about this, because it's somewhat irrelevant. In New South Wales, long story short, we don't have this problem, thankfully. And that's why we've actually been able to stop a lot of the filth that we've seen in Victoria in New South Wales. And so one of the tools I'm rolling out specifically for the Victorian election is one that's going to expose what's been going on. And this basically shows how the parties are preferencing. So that's a very unique project I'm rolling out for Victoria, relevant to you guys, but for the Victorians that are listening, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this so you can see which parties you're voting for, because what ends up happening, guys, is the actual the parties, when you vote above the line in the actual in the upper house, rather than in the federal election, you would number these ballots, as many as you want, but in Victoria you're only allowed to do one, and so you don't get to control the preference. The party controls the preference. And so they start trading with each other in those different regions, And what ends up happening is they stack it. Now, I'm not going to say another word on that because it's irrelevant to you guys. This is why New South Wales is in a far better position. I worry about Victoria, I really do. And this preference whisperer bloke in Victoria. The sixth project, and the last one I want to, this is a very brief outline, is, yeah, I'm doing Scrutineer training. Beautiful photo of myself. But I have to move on from this image. The Scrutineer training is just basically, I'm doing a video talking to you guys about securing the vote, how to watch the vote, and make sure that they don't pull any shenanigans, especially like what we've seen in other countries. And so that's really important. A lot of people, they've never done scrutineering before, and it's very important that we have something that trains people up. I want to start with some positive news about New South Wales. And this is what I said. We've got a situation where in Victoria, it's a lot worse off. They've got some structural problems with the way they vote. We don't have them here. In New South Wales, we actually have the balance of power right now. A lot of people, you know, in the federal election, I said, we have to get the balance of power, we have to get the balance of power. What is the balance of power? So in the lower house, it's very difficult to win. But in the upper house, you can win because it's the Senate and you combine all the votes. In New South Wales, it's a similar situation because what happens is your vote down here, it gets added to my vote, I'm in Parramatta, and we can combine our votes together. We're not segmented in hundred thousands of people in separate groups. And so in our state, we did very well in 2019. We managed to get Mark Latham up, Rod Roberts up, and a Shooters Farmers Fishers guy up as well. And so the way it works in New South Wales is when you get into the upper house, you're not in for 4 years, you're in for 8 years. And only half of the upper house goes up for election. So those gains that we made in 2019, before any of this pandemic nonsense, those gains we made, we get to hold on to them this election. And so those members at the top there, they stay on. There are 11 right-wing members of the Legislative Council, senators, upper house members, and there's 10 left-wing ones. So we're already ahead by 1 seat. Now, who is up for election this time around? Well, we've got no One Nation members. We've got 3 Nationals, 6 Libs. We've got Fred Nile from the Christian Democrat Party, which has now been deregistered. And we've got the one Shooters Farmers Fishers. So it looks like we have 11 right-wingers that are up for grabs again and 10 left-wingers. But we're starting one ahead. That's really good. So how are we going to go? You know, are we going to be able to perform better than we did federally? I think so, yes. This, and by the way, if this is too heavy, like let me know. But for the federal election, New South Wales is on track to actually get 11 up again. So you see 10.7. If you take the federal election votes, these are the freedom parties, you add them together, it ends up being more like 2.8 if you add the other right-wing parties and the Shooters, Farmers, Fishers. It ends up being about 2.8. That's 3 upper house members. That's really good. 1 upper house member, it's about 230,000 votes. That's how many you need. We have enough for almost 3 upper house members. That gets added on to the other One Nation ones that we retained from the previous election. And so we could be looking at 5 to 6 upper house members, keeping either Labor or Liberal accountable and saying, hey, no, we're not going to pass anything through the upper house because legislation has to go through the lower house and the upper house. Nothing's getting passed unless you do this, end the mandates. We'll never go back to lockdowns. We will never do this, this, and this. We want some guarantees on religious freedom and freedom of speech. And so New South Wales, you know, it's so nice to be up here talking to people from my home state. I can be a lot more frank with you. We've got a much better chance than Victoria, a much better chance. You guys did incredibly well in the federal election, in this area especially. You got a combined freedom vote of 15%. That's massive. I think you guys were second to the Hunter region, which got 20%. I mean, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And all of that gets added together and it goes into getting more upper house members elected. So pick your favourite freedom party this election. Feel free to use our volunteer funnel unless you know someone that's running again here. I know we've got one candidate from One Nation here. And make yourself known. Do how to vote cards 2 weeks out from the election. Put up posters up, have conversations, show people the how to vote cards, send people the link to the transparency reports, let them know what's going on there. And while you guys are focusing on this area, I'll be focusing more at my place in Parramatta. Parramatta's quite an interesting one because in southwest Sydney, we had a funny situation where we had the same-sex marriage vote. I happen to vote no on same-sex marriage. I'm from Parramatta, just up there on the top right. And we also happen to be an area that voted against same-sex marriage. And it's really funny because do you guys remember when Gladys Berejiklian was in and she was talking about the LGAs of concern, the council areas of concern, and we have to lock them down, they're not playing by the rules. Well, those areas happen to be the same ones that voted no to same-sex marriage. I was like, right, well that's, I'm no conspiracy theorist, but how many grains of sand make a heap? And so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in those electorates. And there's a lot of people in those electorates that are looking for freedom parties. One of the biggest challenges we face, though, and this is going to be difficult, is a lot of people are feeling disillusioned, as you'd know. This hall was slightly more full last time. And in the federal election, there were 16% of New South Wales eligible voters that did not cast a ballot that counted. 16%, that's 1 million voters, 900,000 voters. That's a lot. But that's the thing though, there's an opportunity there. That's 900,000 we could tap into. And in New South Wales, we can tap into that. I truly believe we can. In areas like the Bankstown electorate in the federal election, they had an invalid vote rate of 20%. What does that mean? People were walking in, by the way, in this area, you have a 4% invalid vote rate, which is really, that's not that bad. What is an invalid vote rate? Well, basically, it's when people rock up to the polling booths and they spoil the ballot, or they ruin it, they throw, a dick or something on there, and they're like, whatever. Well, you guys had a very low rate of 4%. In Bankstown, it was 20%. It's people completely disillusioned, people getting locked down. There's a big market out there for votes out there. So I guess if I was to say to you guys, what should you do? Keep doing what you guys did. You guys did a phenomenal job. 15% is phenomenal. I should find out how much you defunded the major parties. You just have to get I could do the calculation right here actually. You just have to get the number of votes and then times it by 5.8, and that's how much you guys defunded the major parties. You did a phenomenal job. And so there are other electorates where they didn't have the candidates working together symbiotically. And I think that's testimony to your ability to work as a community and come together and articulate a message that resonates with average people, mainstream people. And man, if you guys had like $100,000 or even $1 million in funding to get the message out there, you guys would have killed it. You guys would have got someone up. I truly believe that. We've got the Teals over here. I don't know if you guys heard about how much money they raised, millions of dollars in their electorates. But you guys were just running on conviction and your beliefs, and you made a massive dent to 15%. That is a genuine win. The Labor Party's been around for 100 years. You guys, first go, 15%. It's not bad, if I may say so myself. Other than that, that is the general outline of what's going on. Those are the 6 projects we've got going. Again, the volunteer funnel, the educational graphics, the transparency reports, the rap sheet on your politicians, how to vote cards, regional preference flowcharts, and securing the vote and training scrutineers. Those are projects we're rolling out for Victoria. We're going to do the same for New South Wales. And I think we're going to see a very, very good result. We're already on track. As I showed you in the graph before, we're already on track to hold the balance of power and keep these bastards honest. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how it goes in March 25th next year. And I'm not sure where, I probably shouldn't say it now, but there is more that depends on the New South Wales election than I can say at this point. I'm saving it for next year, but there's something coming down the pipeline. And this isn't like some QAnon stuff. There's something coming down the pipeline which I'm really concerned about. And if Victoria goes the way that I think it's going to go, it's going to fall to the good people of New South Wales to stop this train that's coming. And so just as I'm helping, this is partly why I'm investing so much time in Victoria. I'm hoping that a lot of people do help us with our election just as many of us are helping with theirs. And the fight for New South Wales on the 25th of March next year, you know, it's going to be, we have to do very well, extraordinarily well. And if I return back here in February, or if you see one of my talks in early February next year, you'll understand why, and why we need to mobilise. So I guess my message is, and I'm about to take your questions, but I guess my message is enjoy the summer. For those of you that have suffered a lot the last 2 years, I'm sorry to hear that. You know, that we've had funerals, we haven't been able to celebrate our loved ones. My grandmother passed, my own father passed over the last couple of years, so I understand you haven't been able to live life as you ordinarily have. We've lost our jobs. Some of us have had jab injuries. Some of us have had family members that have had jab injuries. Families have split up. And so for me to say, enjoy your holiday, I know it's like, what are you talking about, Joel? But as much as possible, please have a break. The beach is a stone throw away from here. I love to fish. I love forward driving, and I will be taking time off to do that. But next year, in late January, early February, we've got to hit it. And we've got to do what you guys did in the federal election. I wish all the electorates were like you guys, and the social fabric was there. And so now I will open up to the floor. For those of you listening online that want to help these projects, we run purely on donations the last couple of years. And these projects will not be happening without your support. So thank you guys so much around the country. And Kylie, let's do it. Let's do some Q&A.
All right, who's got some questions?
Yeah. Well, it's not all at once.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah. Yeah, that was funny last time.
That's what I do. I just hold it. I don't pin it on my lip, do I? No.
Oh, that's all right. It's just yeah.
Hi, mate. Look, I'm wondering about the where did I write it? The rap sheet. What about lead up to it? So, like, what they might have perpetrated or their business habits up until that point before they entered politics.
Mate, I need some more funding on that because I'd have to run it past legal, and that's, you guys know what legal's like. I would love to see who's getting sponsored by the World Economic Forum. I mean, have you guys heard about this group called Reset Australia? Have you heard about them? They're an organisation that's associated with the Great Reset. Well, yeah, I did a segment about this around about May last year. I think it was about March last year. Joel Jammal, the Great Reset. If you search that up, I did a video on it, and I talked about this group. One person on there used to work for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. One person used to work for the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016. A number of them worked on censoring us, and and the organisation is also sponsored, Reset Australia. You can find it. There's a Facebook page for it, actually. That organisation also is sponsored and funded by many of these organisations around the world that are pushing a lot of this stuff. And so I would love to expose who these sort of intergovernmental organisations are doing, and exposing what they're doing. The reason I looked into them back then, and I hope this speaks to your question, is that I suspect what they've been doing is organisations like that. They've been liaising with government and talking to them about who to ban. Did you guys ever wonder why Craig Kelly got banned? You know, I was working with him when he was that strange time when he was an independent and he didn't join a party. He'd left the Liberal Party. I was working with him in that time, and then I left once he, joined a party and he got a full infrastructure. I suspected at the time they had something to do with his ban, this Reset Australia group, because what they do, and I guess the best way to explain it is, this group, they point out to the Nazis where the Jews are hiding, basically. They're basically saying, oh, they're under the floorboards here and there. And so what they do is they say, these are the people you need to ban online. These are the thought leaders in the movement. And so I have no doubt many of you have suffered from some of the censorship that these people have been promulgating. Because it literally says part of their aims, I mean, guys, you could look it up on your phone right now, if not for the fact that it crashed the stream. Reset Australia. If you search that into Google, it'll be the first link. And if you look at their stated aims, they talk about, I think, something like fortifying elections, like stopping election fraud. It's like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Stop being disinformation, whether it be COVID. Oh, and this was the other funny thing. One of the things was their director established Reset Australia in September 2019. But the organisation was established to combat COVID. And I was like, I talk about this in the segment. Guys, I'm not, I will tell you if there's something where there's not enough proof. But this was on his LinkedIn. Like this is all in my segment that I talked about it. Reset Australia, Joel Jammal, early last year I talked about it. Very troubling stuff. I'm sorry if I went off topic with the answer. Did that speak to it?
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, cool. No.
Can I just tell everyone, we just had a workers' comp victory for the teachers, so the education group.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
Congratulations. Oh yeah, I did hear about that. Yeah,
This can transfer to any public service. So if you're an AMBO, fiery, probably even aged care, the nature of the psychological injury was the fact that you heard about the mandate while you were at work. Open and shut.
There you go.
Open and shut. And it doesn't just come with 95% of your wages, it becomes lump sums and eventually a common law tort. So I invite you to indulge it and tell your friends.
Good on you. No, good. I heard about that, and I did hear about that, and that's why I told people at the time, make them fire you because you might be able to claim, benefits after that.
Yeah, Martuk, as good as he may be, had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I actually discovered that. I actually discovered that after the fact. I posted a video of Matuk lawyers doing it. Nothing against him or what he does. It's just he had nothing to do with that specific case.
Yeah. That was
And
me on the phone.
I understand that. Did anyone else have a question? Yep.
Do you need researchers up here? Do you need help? Do you
Yeah,
want
absolutely.
active? We've got quite an active
I've got
bunch
your,
up
I've got
here.
your I've got your details, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, we'll
Great.
connect, mate. Researchers, I'm going to need them for the transparency reports for New South Wales. So absolutely.
They'd have to hold it right up.
And what was your name?
My name's Robert.
Robert. Nice to meet you, Robert.
Thank you. Just regarding that example how to vote card that you presented, you're stressing voting above the line rather than below the line.
Yes.
Is that for the sake?
Sorry, can I just say, for Victoria, we're doing below the line just because it gets us around the preference whisperer. But sorry, go on. But for New South Wales, we're going to do above the line.
Okay. Is that for the sake of simplicity, or are there other reasons?
Yeah, 95% of people, they tend to vote, particularly in Victoria, above the line. And so in New South Wales, we'll be doing above the line for simplicity reasons. It's hard enough getting people to use a how to vote card, let alone get them to number all 150 candidates on the white ballot. So yeah, so that's our thinking there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. That was easy.
I guess this is probably a personal question, but I mean, I guess like you said, that the whole issue with also freedom parties is that there's so many, and you need the power of accumulation, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess it's really hard to ask that. I'm not asking kind of which party to put up, but which party, in your opinion, which freedom party has the strongest chance of actually making count? Like.
Sure. Can I just see if that's on? Is that?
Sorry, I'm probably not
No,
speaking.
good.
Yeah, sorry. I know that voting is.
I heard it. I was worried that people online didn't hear it. Yep. So I'm not endorsed by any party. I'm not a member of any political party, and there's an interesting reason why that is. But I have to. I feel like, and particularly in Victoria, they have no neutral voices to sort of be the guide and say this is how things work and this and that. Good luck, sort of thing. Here are some tools to help you along the way. And so I'm trying to be that voice. And so with the parties that I like, I obviously endorse the freedom parties. They made a threshold, which is that they stand against the mandates, they stand against the lockdowns, they're for freedom of speech, freedom of movement. And that's a very easy sort of line to get past. Of course, I have my favourites, particularly when it comes to some of the moral stuff and the economics. I'm a Christian, Australian, conservative, who's in the freedom movement, So you can imagine that I obviously agree a lot with some of the American policies that we see out of the MAGA movement, the Make America Great movement. I believe in, nationalism. I believe in Christian values, whether it be on abortion or euthanasia. And so look, I tend to look at it on terms of a candidate basis, and I encourage you all to be like that, because you guys are a bit more educated and more, you look into things a bit more. But what I present is a very basic for people that haven't really thought about this stuff. But you guys, you should all be researching your own candidates, making your own how to vote card, and doing that, of course. But for me personally, in the last election, I mean, I ended up voting for Julian Fayed, who was the UAP candidate in my area. I then voted for the Liberal Democrats candidate. I think I then voted for an independent in Parramatta, and then I voted for One Nation. I probably would have voted One Nation first, but unfortunately it was a ghost candidate in that area. And that was unfortunate because in most other areas, they weren't ghost candidates. But in my particular area, that was where I first discovered that it happened. What's a ghost candidate? It's where someone says they're running in that area, but they're actually not from the area. They have no connection to the area. And so that was unfortunate. And this is the thing. I don't want to badmouth One Nation or anything, because the major parties have been doing this for decades. And some of the other freedom parties do this as well. And so I understand why they do it. It's partly to... and this had nothing to do with One Nation New South Wales, by the way. This was a federal thing. And the guy that did that in One Nation, I actually got to the bottom of this. A lot of people were upset about it in the election. The guy that did that in the federal election, he got fired from One Nation. So I want you guys to know that it has nothing to do with the people in front of you today that are part of One Nation. But the reason they do that sometimes in the major parties is it gives them, it's the most accurate way to get polling and to see where your support is. And also it, if you know you're going to lose the race, why spend resources there? But it also gets them votes for the Senate as well. And so I understand why they do it. I disagree with it. There was a perfectly good person to run in my area for that party that didn't end up running because they got this other person took over. But that's how I voted. And so I really like One Nation. I really like the Liberal Democrats. I really like, who else is here in the state? I think Family First might run unregistered candidates. The UAP is not registered in this state for state elections. Otherwise, I'd also be voting for them as well. But I think they're running independents. And those are the big players. There aren't many parties that were registered because they had to be registered by March this year. And so, yeah, so that's a very long way of answering the question. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Hi, Joel. I've got a question. New South Wales is a little bit different to the federal election and some of the other states in the fact that we don't have compulsory preferential voting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what would you recommend in that situation? It's still better to preference all the freedom parties and then just leave the major parties off?
Yeah, so look, and I probably should have said this before, I am not on the How to Vote card team because of integrity reasons. I just message it, and it also stops them from getting threats and bribes and all that. So I'm not joking, like in the federal, the first time we rolled this out, it was for the local election in New South Wales, and there were people that were trying to threaten me to change certain cards, and I said, I'm not on the team. And I don't tell people who's on the team for this very reason, so get lost. And so that's why I do it this way. In Victoria, it's not a New South Wales team that's doing it, it's a Victorian team that we know, we like, we trust to do the cards and have the interests of you guys in mind in Victoria. And they refer to the policy matrix to see which candidates stand for those policies. In New South Wales, I'm not sure what they're going to do. And so when it comes to, yes, to explain what you were saying, I think we have the superior voting model in New South Wales, and this is partly why we're doing so well. On the lower house sheet, which is the green one, you have to number all of the candidates in a federal election, but on a state election you don't, and you can stop it at any point. And so that's really good because what it means is you can say, no, if you want my vote, you can come and get it. It shouldn't be a given that I just give it to the Liberal Party or I give it to the Labor Party. You have to come and get my vote. These are my policies. Here's a policy matrix. This is what I believe in. And you're coming up red, and that's it. Yeah. And for the Senate, you can also you can number as many as you want as well for the above the line and the below the line, but we'll be doing above the line. And and so look, I'm not sure what the team's going to do if they're going to cut it off at the Liberals. I suspect there's a lot of good Liberals, but also some bad Liberals like Matt Keane or Matt Green, who we probably won't back. But I'm not sure what they're going to do at this stage. Yeah, it'll all depend on that and also strategy. Yeah.
Because that seems to be one of the left's strengths is that they preference. And my understanding is at the last New South Wales state election, that's how the Animal Justice Party got in, through preferences. And I think it was Fred Nile lost one of his seats because the preferences didn't flow the right way. Yep. Because the right people don't tend to, the people on the right don't preference as much.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Fred Nile, there was a guy called Paul Green. He was trying to run. He didn't end up getting up because the right-wing parties didn't preference each other. And that's why I get upset with them sometimes when they fight. I don't like it. And so part of the reason why we do the cards is so that we can tighten up that and make sure we're efficiently preferencing each other. Because if people stick to it, you're guaranteed to be putting freedom parties on top. Guaranteed.
Yep.
You know, we don't know which order it'll be, but that's the one guarantee we do before we even know who's running. And we do that for the upper house as well. And yeah, but no, you're right. The Greens and Labor, they transfer like 95% of the preferences to each other. So it's tough.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Joel.
Hi.
My question is what we found in the federal election in relation to the Senate vote, that a lot of us had looked at the Scrutineer's handbook and found, I think it was page 63, it was voting one only above the line, so that we would exhaust our vote, and then some of the, even though they were freedom parties in origin, we could see that there was some preferencing still happening, and there was concerns that we wanted to kind of lock it down. And then, so that there was a lot of people that kind of went in with that mindset, and we're all in the election lines at the booths and hearing all the lovely little people behind the desk saying, oh no, that's illegal.
Yeah, they're wrong.
That's not an option.
They're wrong.
So what are your thoughts on that? Is there benefits to exhausting your vote as a one above only?
Look, I don't agree with it, nor would the team do it, and I know that for a certainty. I just don't think it's an efficient way to do it. I think that with Ricardo, because he pointed this out, rightly so, his wife has a legal background, and I'm sure she was the one that looked at this very closely, and so very astute of them to point. It was very astute of them to point this out. When I first heard it, I thought it was wrong, and when I looked it up in the Scrutineer's handbook, I was like, oh, they're actually right. They're bang on right, and so yeah, you can do a one for the federal election. I'm not sure if that's the case on the state, so I won't be telling people to do that. But in terms of strategy, it's actually a terrible idea. I think that, you know, you need to be backing all the parties that stand with you on the policies, like we showed before. It's black and white, you know, red and green, and giving them all an opportunity to get up, the best opportunity possible, especially in the Senate. It's very important, and so yeah. So I disagree with the tactic, but the people at the AEC need better training. They really do. I mean, the idea that they would restrict a lot of people due to their jab status as well, which I did hear about at the AEC, they're starving for workers. You know, they should be accepting everyone to come in. And by the way, that's another thing. It's not too late to get a job with the AEC, guys. In fact, if you guys want a job with with the New South Wales Electoral Commission, and you can get it, absolutely go for it. We need more of our people in there, blowing the whistle if something's wrong, and looking at that. You know, I was astonished by, you know, what's been happening the last 50 years is we've had the long march through the institutions, which is a Marxist, you know, a communist sort of idea, cultural Marxist idea, where they march through all the institutions, whether that be the universities, the schools, where everyone gets trained, the media, Hollywood, and they've captured the mind of the West, and our children, and our priests, because even priests go through, you know, universities or colleges, and we need our own long march through the institutions. We have to recapture the institutions, including the New South Wales Electoral Commission and other institutions. And so that's what people should be looking at, to be really, because this is the thing. Jordan Peterson has a great rule in his new book, 12 More Rules for Life. It's where responsibility has been abdicated, opportunity lurks. I promise you this, wherever in your life and wherever in the country, wherever we abdicate our responsibility, our duty to the country, the worst kinds of people will take over. It always happens. It happens on a personal level, it happens in your family, it happens in your community, and it happens, you know, in the country. That's what's been happening. Everyone's been focusing on their work, everyone's been focusing on their kids. A lot of it because of, by nature of what the politicians have been doing with policy, but at the same time, we've got to take back our institutions, including the Electoral Commission. So, yeah. Yep.
Federal election.
Yep.
With the federal election, how well did the freedom? I know it's been a bit. I haven't been able to find any info on it. and I've been doing a lot of other freedom fighting stuff too, so
Yeah.
it's just the time. But how did we go? Like, I know obviously Liberal and Labor got very low votes.
Oh yeah,
but
decimated.
Did we get some seats and stuff?
Yeah,
out
we
of the
did. Yeah,
federal-
so the breakdown is, so before the election, I'll tell you what I said. And I said it in this very room. I was standing here, and there was a gentleman on my left there who was saying, we can form government. And I said, I don't know about that. I don't think so. I think that we'll be hard-pressed for that. And God bless him, we should be optimistic before going into election. But I feel like it's my job to be realistic with you guys and not to sugarcoat it. And so in the federal election, I said we'd get anywhere from 2 to 6 Senate spots. I didn't see us winning lower house spots.
Yeah.
In fact, I recall saying even Craig Kelly in the seat of Hughes, that's a lower house seat, 100,000 people, he's had that seat for like 11 years. Even he will lose his seat. I said that at the time. How do I know this? Because I used to work for him when he was an independent for 3 months when he was getting banned off everything. I was getting him onto Telegram. And I looked at the stats because at one point I thought I was going to be working on his campaign. And I was like, this guy can't win it. He needs to run in the Senate. And he should have been the Senate candidate for the UAP, 100%. Let me answer your question. Oh, sorry, I do this. The nerd in me. How did we go? So I said we'd get 2 to 6 Senate spots. We ended up getting 2 spots. We got Pauline Hanson up in Queensland, and we got Ralph Babbitt for the UAP up in Victoria. And the way that we actually could have got 6. Now that seems like a big jump. Like, how did we? Well, we could have gotten up 1 in every state. It wasn't inconceivable. What the major parties did, what the Liberal Party did, was they cut out, particularly One Nation, but a lot of the other freedom parties, they cut them out of the preferencing. So on their cards, on their how to vote cards that they were handing out, that they had people on the polling booths handing out, they put Labor ahead of One Nation, of the other freedom parties. So that made a massive difference in Tasmania, WA, South Australia, New South Wales. And so instead of us getting those spots, Liberal members got those spots, or in the case of Tasmania, one from Jackie Lambie's party got up. That's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate because we could have gotten 6 up. Now this is the thing. Even if we got those 4 additional ones, we still couldn't have had the balance of power. And this is the problem. We need a multi-pronged approach because what would have happened was, we needed the Libs to take some off the Labor voters. We needed to eat into the Labor vote as well. If we got a Labor look, it's tough to explain. But if we had a situation where this is what an upper house looks like, what I'm saying was we had the capacity to get 6. We got 2. Yeah. Now the 4 that we could have got because of preferencing, they were either on the crossbench or they were a Liberal one. We needed to get these ones. You know what I mean? Because what happens is, what is the balance of power? It's just controlling the middle. And so it really depends. You could hold the balance of power with 2 Senate spots. You could hold it with 1. You could hold it with 6. You could hold it with 10. It depends how
much Liberal and Labor have.
exactly how it all lands, and that's the thing. So even if we got those 6 spots, it wouldn't have really mattered.
Yeah.
But for the next federal election, if we only need a handful because we did get 2 up, and I think we can do it. And so what I was going to say was, I hate the Liberal Party, I really do. I don't like them. I don't like the Malcolm Turnbulls. I don't like Scott Morrison. I don't like Matt Keane or Gladys Berejiklian. But we actually need a multi-pronged approach. I'm a true believer of the freedom parties. I've sent so many people their way, so much coverage, so many members. But we need a multi-pronged approach. The freedom parties, we only have the capacity to put our foot on the brake and to maybe get the balance of power. Like in New South Wales, we can get the balance of power. Yeah. But what we need is we need the Liberal Party to remember what they are. We need them to go back to their original beliefs. Yeah. I would sleep way more comfortably if we had a Liberal government, but we had the balance of power. Because then you'd have the Liberals with one hand on the wheel, and we'd have the other making sure that, no, you don't get to go this way. Yeah. This is how the ship runs basically now. Yeah. And so that's the future. And there's a lot of, I talk with people from all parties, and in the Liberal Party in New South Wales, they are making inroads into reforming their party, whether that be the democratic process, making sure they don't get captain's picks, if you know what they are. And if they pull it off, we'll be ready. We'll be there. We'll be like, okay, cool, but we're holding on to this balance of power. And just a technicality, especially for the nerds out there, if the Liberal Party's in government and we have the balance of power, so they can't get anything passed without us, we don't have to worry about Labor crossing and voting with the Liberals because they have an internal rule where they never cross the bench. Whereas if it's Labor in government and we have the balance of power, the Liberals, they might jump the bench. And so so I would love to form government. I would love to see a coalition of freedom parties, and maybe one day that will happen. I don't want to rule it out. Maybe things get that bad. But realistically, we need a multi-pronged approach. And so there's a lot of good people in the Liberal Party, that they need to take their party back and they need to reform it. And they are. In South Australia, for example, Alex Antic, we love Alex Antic. I hope some of you saw the video of him the other day going and attacking the grooming stuff that was coming out of the ABC that we uploaded. And Antic he is probably one of the best people to lead the Liberal Party conservative movement. What he did in South Australia, it's all about memberships and numbers and stacking branches and all that. What he did was there was a big controversy last year or the year before where the Liberal Party there was a bit moderate under Christopher Pyne, and they were stopping people from joining the party that were conservative or Christian. They were stopping it. And so the backlash has happened. Alex has sort of been really directing and holding hall meetings like this, and they've flooded the membership. They've flooded it with 1,000 new net members. They went from 4,000 to 5,000 new members. Massive. Massive. And so what happened was, so now they've got greater control over what policies they run on, which candidates get pre-selected, and what strategies they generally they do. And so there is a case to be made if you're in South Australia that you should join the Liberal Party and to push it there. But then again, there's some great people over there. There's Sarah Game. She's the upper house member, the member of the Legislative Council. She's with One Nation and she got elected, so you might want to get behind her or some of the other parties. But do you see what I mean? It takes a multi-pronged approach. You need both working together in order to get this working.
Because at the moment it feels like they're both just...
Yeah.
They're both signed up with the WEF and they're both just leading off one or the other. All we're doing is changing the CEO of the corporation.
Absolutely.
That's
It was the Liberal Party that locked up Pauline Hanson. It was the Liberal Party that locked us down as people.
Yeah.
It was the Liberal Party that mandated the jabs, and they handed the tools to the states to actually mandate the jab. You guys, many of you heard this many times. For those of you who haven't, the federal government has access to your My Health records that we mandatorily we adopted because those forms that we never read. But, do you want to integrate this system with that system? We're like, yeah, just give me my information so I can complete this Centrelink thing or that thing or whatever, government stuff. And so the federal government is the only one that can mandate the jab because what happened was they had a tool which gave them access to all people's information. And then what they did was they gave that information to the states. And now George Christensen blew the whistle on that. In 2020, there was an internal discussion, and he said, we can stop people from losing their jobs and this information being used against that. If we just add this condition and that condition, and they said, oh no, it'll never happen. That was the health, Greg Hunt, the health minister, he said, it'll never happen. And it happened. And so when Scott Morrison said, we don't have a policy of mandatory jabs, absolute crap.
Yeah.
Absolute crap. He handed them the tools.
He still mandated it.
Yeah. Anyway, he needs to go. And in his electorate, we did very well.
Same with Gladys.
He was in his electorate. He was sitting on 19%. It was like the 8th safest seat in the country, and we brought him down to 12%. So we chipped away at it. So there were some seats where, like his, we wanted to sort of cut him down to size, so that in the next election we might be able to get him.
Well, I hope it does. I hope Liberal does go with Alex's lead because he's a good man.
It's happening in New South Wales as well. Actually, it's quite encouraging to see. We're seeing the Liberals very angry about what happened federally. I won't go into it. It's probably a bit boring. Yeah. Well, what happened
throughout these last couple of years too? So
what happened in New South Wales was the federal government, they stomped on the rights of Liberal members in New South Wales, and they said, no, you don't get to pick your candidates. We will pick them for you. So they tended to pick women candidates because they're a woman. And they tended to pick candidates where they had kissed the ring of Scott Morrison and Alex Hawke, who's a big factional leader. And so out of those 12 captains picks, 11 of them lost. And so in the Liberal Party in New South Wales, they've gone back to the drawing board and they're saying, what did we do wrong? And the Conservative side of the movement, people like Matthew Kamanzuli, he was kicked out of the party for taking Scott Morrison to court and holding up the election for a month. I don't know if you guys heard about him. Well, he's now been empowered, and people like him, to say, no, we want members' rights, we want to democratise the party. And so South Australia and New South Wales, if I was to be a member of the Libs and you held the gun to my head, I'd like to be in these states. Queensland and South Australia, Queensland and Victoria and WA, yeah, different story, but yeah.
Thank you.
For those of you listening online, all 200 of you, give this a share, get it out there. We need more people to hear these chats.
I just wanted to ask how we can support you. Where do you donate?
Oh,
Just
well,
the
thank
website?
you. No, I really appreciate that. If you click the link on this stream, if you go to the Turning Point Australia website, tpaust.com.au, there's a donate link at the top. If you click the link on the stream, there's bank details there as well. It all goes into these elections. You know, I fund it out of my own pocket, and these projects wouldn't happen without your help. And so, no, look, thank you so much for asking. I really appreciate that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for everything you do.
Cheers. And thank you for what you do. I'll be meeting with you very soon to look at what we can do for this state. I've been working very hard on New South Wales since 2019, actually. There's a lot we need to do for this upcoming election. Yeah.
Hi, Jammal. My name's Christine. There's 4 of us down from the Hunter tonight to see you.
God bless you.
To
You guys
have
got
a chat.
20% in the freedom
Oh, we
votes.
did.
Well
We
done.
worked really hard up there. We actually just did some really basic education nights up there. I rang all my neighbours who said to me, oh, we don't vote, we write save the trees on the form and fold it up and stick it in the tree. I said, you can't do that. You know, you've got 1 vote. You need to come to my place and learn how to vote. Yeah. I had like 30 of them, dreadlocks, barefoot, all turned up. Yeah. And not only did they turn up to learn how to vote, and here's my daughter and I throwing together a PowerPoint presentation the day before, because we didn't know how to vote ourselves. We had to Google it all. We threw it together. Not only did they come and learn how to vote, they manned the booths. They did amazing. We had pre-polling was covered. You know, polling day was covered, and they did an amazing job. So I suppose and we just started a group actually up in the wineries, and we've got over 100 members, 4 months,
Well
and
done.
we're gearing
I
up.
wish more people would do that. I wish more people would do that.
Yeah.
Well done. And that's what I'm talking about. The further you go out from the major cities, you get cool
and
groups like that.
We're actually gearing up for the state election, but we're also gearing up for local elections in 2 years.
Yeah.
And we'll be ready, I hope, for the next federal election, because we were behind the 8 ball. You know, we were learning as we went along, like probably a lot of people here. But, you know, people are keen. They want change. They want getting them to understand that they have to step up. Is
there a question at the end of this? Or?
No, that's it. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks,
Joel.
No, thank you for what you're doing. I wish more, you know, Graham Hood, love Graham Hood. Hey, there you go, Graham. I'm trying to support what he's doing as well, because it's like that. He's going up, he's in Queensland now. He's been doing this around the country, meeting in groups, having that face-to-face time. People are craving it. You know, the town hall, the pub, that's where democracy happened in history. And we're social creatures, so what you're doing is God's work. It's going to keep this country going, and it's very important we educate the young on why you're doing that. So well done. Thank you so much. Howdy.
How you going, Jammal? Got John Boy here. As you know, this model here is actually modelled off the 1986 Australia Act, the illegitimate one. Do you see it being able to be produced back into the 1901 Constitutional Act, where legislative process has then got accountability?
Nothing is set in stone. Everything can be reversed. But you are asking a construction guy about legal issues. So I'm gonna deflate my tires a bit and say you're asking the wrong guy. You should be talking to Professor David Flint, Professor Augusto Zimmerman, and Dr. Stephen Shavura. They're my go-to people on all things constitutional and stuff like that. But Mate, you just reminded me of something. In Queensland, they abolished their upper house. They don't have an upper house. Now, I reckon we can bring it back. I think we can. And if they do, they can have a balance of power like what we've got here. You know?
Well, if we go back to the 1901 constitutional base, we've got accountability. That's what we haven't got at the moment. And that's why they're running amok.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
you
And
know,
you know
we
what,
need to have
we
the
can do a
accountability back again.
constitutional convention as well, where the states come together and meet. I think our constitution's out of date. I think it's not adequate for the times. I think that we need to bring it back together and back to basics. I think it needs an update. So I'm not saying we need to go back. I'm not saying we need to adopt anything. Yeah, I'm not getting into the specific of the act. All I'm saying is it's not working, and we need to update it, and we need to have a national discussion about how to do it. And I trust no one better than David Flint to be the one writing it, as he's someone that is, let's say, he's closer to the grave than myself, and he's seen a lot. And I think that having someone like him and others, you know, take something, write it down, and bring it to the people. I think that's the best way to go about it. Now, whether it's the 1901, whether it's another act, I don't even know what's in those acts, so I couldn't tell you.
1901 was established and actually counted in that respect, where the 86 is illegitimate. So, again, first in law, best in law. So, that should be primary in the first place.
Yeah.
It will give us a reset point to launch off to something better from. Joel, are you familiar with the Hillsdale College things going on over in the US? Sorry?
Rings a bell. It rings a bell. The Hillsdale.
Not that I know of. So they're basically running, it's a free service you can basically do a subscription to, and it's all about what makes a good constitution.
Yeah, I've heard
So
about that.
they're like 30 minutes. There's about 11 or 12 episodes. Really good to have a look at, because at some point in the future, we're all going to be having this discussion about what do we want in a new constitution once we hit the reset button, our reset.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just to throw a little bit extra back into the 1901, that was to hold the illegitimates accountable. That's the main thing. That's the 8601 that we've got here now.
Yeah.
Nobody's been held accountable.
No, I agree.
So,
Did they have recall elections in that one?
Sorry again?
Did they have recall elections in that?
Well, no, they actually accounted it proper. We had writs for the actual elections, and we didn't have preferential parties or anything like that. It was the individual that you promoted yourself.
Yeah.
If your people elected you, well, then you stand in there.
Yeah,
there was no such thing as parties or anything like that. This is where it's sad, because now you're building a system and putting people in a system. You forgot about the people. The people are the groundwork that really need to be in there.
I totally agree. I just
the preamble of the actual Constitution states the legislation process is the Crown, the Senate, and the House.
Yeah.
And the House is us.
Yeah,
We
look,
the people.
as I said before, I'm not pretending to understand all of that. I think there's a lot of lessons in the US we could learn, things that work, like recall elections, which aren't in those particular acts, as you just said, which I think we might be able to find some use for here. I think also, you know, the parties should adopt primaries, and we don't need to amend the constitution for that, just the constitution of the parties to do that, so that we have debates. I can't wait to stream debates within the party so that they nominate people. You know what I'd love? And this is a free idea. Anyone that wants to make money on this, go. I would love to see the freedom parties merge together and take those external battles and have them in the form of a primary. And then when they pick a candidate and they have their little factions and voting and whatever, like they do in the US, they all go behind that one candidate and they smash it. I would love to see that. You know, I think that would make more sense, and it'd make, you know, economies of scale. We'd combine resources a lot better. But
Joel, with the we're from the Hunter Valley with Christine and the Christine's group as well. So we all did the volunteering for the pre-poll and the polling and on the election day and everything like that. When it comes to planning to try and get the volunteers in, how far out do you think we should be organising scrutineers and polling booths volunteers? Because I think, like, the federal come up quick sort of thing. We've got time now to plan and put it out, but at the same time you don't want to go too early, because people, I don't know, what sort of timeline?
It depends there's different forms of preparation. You should always be building community. You should always be doing things to think about how you can call on people when the election comes around and educating them. You should always be thinking about that. I mean, these meetings every couple of weeks is great. So you should always be building your database of contacts in the area. I've been preparing for New South Wales elections since 2019, but more intensely since June this year. I've been looking at the candidates that are running for New South Wales, especially for some of these parties that you see up there, and I've been seeing who we're going to be working with, and if they need training, providing them training. In terms of volunteers, absolutely, should be building up contacts. We don't really need to hit it hard in terms of we need their help until 2 weeks, the 2 weeks of pre-poll. You know, like for example, Victoria, and this is why I love talking to you guys while Victoria's on, because it's a live example. Their pre-polling starts on Monday. We find out who's running tomorrow. I'm not going to get any sleep over the weekend because we're going to be working on the how to vote cards. And Monday, pre-polling starts. Typically in areas, there's only 2 polling booths. Like federally, for example, in Parramatta, we only had 2 polling booths, one which got 90% of the votes, one which got about 10% of the votes. You just have to man those 2 polling booths throughout the day. Make sure you have 6 to 8 people at those polling booths, because the major parties definitely will have those numbers, and do that on the Monday until the day of the election, because it happens on the weekend. And for God's sake, do not protest during that time. Do not protest. You should be at the polling booths. There's a lot of people that plan to protest in the middle of Victoria's election, and I'm like, anyway, side note. But in the pre-polling, that's when we need volunteers there. Scrutineer training should, of course, be held within a month, maybe even sooner. You know, like we're not rolling our scrutineering video out until like next week for Victorians, to just a very simple video to educate them. This is what you look for. When they do this with the ballots, watch out for that. You know, this is how you can quickly check what they're doing, even though they're doing it quickly. These are the questions to ask. So within the last 3 weeks before election day, that's when a lot of that needs to happen. Election day, very difficult to man all the polling booths. There's a project which isn't on here, which I hope, if I have the funding and I have the manpower, volunteer power, and the tech, I want to make a program for you freedom people so that you can share your knowledge with each other. I want to, every project you see here, it's trying to get the freedom parties to work together. One of the things, and if someone beats me to it, awesome. Just make sure you do a proper job of it. I want someone to make, I mean it, because otherwise people sometimes they do a crappy job and then people get turned off by it. If I want a program where it's very simple, you go to the website and you can see where your other Freedom Party people have volunteers. So only the managers in the party would have access to it. So there might be maybe 50 people across the Freedom Parties that have access to it. And you can see, you don't see any names, but you can see, okay, you know, the UAP have scrutineers at this polling booth. They can watch our ballots and we'll watch theirs at this one. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. So you sort of have a bit of a game plan going. I want to do that, and I want to build something so that they can do that and do it for free, yeah.
Because we seem to have a lot of volunteers for handing them out, but not so much scrutineers, and I think scrutineers is really, really important. Yeah. So like maybe 4 to 6 weeks out, try to get people's names that are pretty well confident they're going to volunteer, and then we can work out how many we need, how many polling booths. Yeah. Being the state, you would think you would have more chance of getting more volunteers to do each poll compared to when it was federal, because you just got, I don't know.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure. Well, look, that's partly what the volunteer funnel is about. It's about channeling our audience to help you guys. But yeah, absolutely, you should be getting names now. Early on next year, mid-January to late January, start, getting names, and yeah, start having fortnightly meetings next year and go from there. But as I said before, enjoy your break over the summer. Remember why you're fighting for this and why we waste time. Don't be like the Americans. The Americans, they live to work. We work to live in Australia, And I think that we really have to remember why we're doing this. Spend time with your family, assuming they haven't, cast you out, and I'm sorry to those that have. But I smile because there's been some crazy stories. There was one girl, she was 26 years old, and her father, because she wouldn't get the jab, threw her out of the house. Asian background. And she had to, she was a young working professional, and she had to just find, just like that, find a rental, make it work and this and that. And look, some people would say you should be moving out at 18 anyway. But the idea that that happened, the idea that that happened because of your jab status is just ridiculous. From your own father. I mean, like, anyway. So look, I hope everyone has a break over the summer, and I'm looking forward to picking the ball back up in mid-January with everyone. But yeah. Watch out for the weather. Watch out for the weather. Yeah. Where's Cut? There you are.
Hi, I'm Sharon from the Hunter Valley as well. You briefly touched on getting the young people involved. Any ideas?
Yeah, well, look, part of me thinks it's not your job, to be honest. Part of me thinks it's a me problem. I have to, don't get me wrong, you should all, if there's the opportunity, you should absolutely have a conversation with a young person and think about things that concern them. Like, if there's something to do with taxes, there's something to do with, something that would appeal to them, then be like, yeah, that's something.
I've tried.
Yeah, I'm on TikTok. I'm doing very well there, building it up. I'm trying to reach them, but it's so funny. I was getting and I don't care that this is on camera. I was getting a haircut during the lockdowns, and the lady that saw me there, she was like, "Oh, I've seen you on TikTok," and I was like, "Wow, I'm not even on TikTok yet," but someone was uploading my videos, there was one video. I was talking about there being a royal commission into COVID. Tony Abbott was calling for it. And and someone uploaded it. It got like 70,000 views. And next thing I know, this lady that's cutting my hair was like, "Oh, I saw you on TikTok." And I was like, "I'm not on TikTok. What are you talking about?" And so I realized there's something there, and I need to jump on. So, but I say it's a me problem because Turning Point Australia is like it's associated and licensed by Turning Point USA. They started 10 years ago. They started in the universities. They start chapters where they give young people a safe space. It's so woke. But no, like a space where they can discuss ideas. You need a safe space on the universities because of how bad it is, in the education and all of that. And so, I was just listening to a story this week of a conservative Liberal Party young girl in a law exam. Yeah, and there was a. Did you read it? The story in the example that was used in it. It was basically her. And she felt she was being bullied, and it was explicitly it was just disgusting. Anyway, the point is, there's not free speech on the campuses, even though they receive your tax dollars, these universities, and the government should be, flexing their muscles. The Liberal government should have definitely, flexed their muscles. Dan Tehan was the education minister. He should have been saying, "No, you're not getting any more federal funding if you don't." And so, look, part of it's a me problem, and I've got to. We are building a team of students that want to start chapters in these universities. At the Nigel Farage event in Queensland, I introduced the audience to a guy named Barclay, and he's someone who's starting one of our first chapters up there. He's already got a group. They're already doing their weekly meetups, and we're going to start getting speakers out to them, like senators, to come have chats with them and to sort of engage. But it's just like this. But it's for the young'uns,
Well, I work with a lot of, I used to before I become unemployable, no jab, no job. I worked with a lot of people your age, and I felt like I was from Mars because they were just so not turned on to the world.
Yeah.
And it was really quite distressing that, they're the next generation, and
Look, it's difficult.
I dropped out of uni because I went to do my masters, and it was so corrupt.
Yeah.
I had to leave because
it's so bad, and that's what I'm talking about.
Shocking.
This long march of the institutions. Even the priests are trained in these universities and colleges. It's like no wonder we're getting smashed, and the churches are silent. They've been at this for 30, 50 years.
Longer.
I remember telling this audience before the federal election, I said, guys, some of the very people that say we're battling against 30 to 50 years of corruption and filth, they want to turn it around in one election, in a 2-year. I was like, guys, this is going to take some time. They've been capturing every institution under your nose, and if you think that we're going to win by doing one election, and without touching the hearts of the minds of people, it's not going to happen. And so we're in for the long slog, and I recognise that I'm in for the longest slog, being, I think, the youngest person in the room. Anyone younger than 25? No. See, well, I'm in for the long slog. We're in the long slog, man. And so, I'm very much looking forward to this. And you reminded me of something. Next year, I don't know if any of you guys made the Nigel Farage tour in Sydney. He came out and he was awesome. We had him on with Alan Jones. And next year we've got some big American names coming out. Like it's going to be biblical. Which we're trying to get at least 3 tours out. One in March, in time for the election. One in June and one in October. And yeah, that's all I can say. They're big names. We've secured our March one. You guys are going to love it. And a lot of young people are going to come to that because of, yeah. So, thank you. Was there another?
Any more questions?
For those of you that, if there's no more questions, then I'm surprised no one asked me about the voting. Like maybe I need to ask me. No. The Australian. I talked about Arizona at the start. All right, I need to do this because some people are often too shy to ask. Joel, why should we vote? Joel, our votes don't count. Joel, what's the point? So I'm just going to ask myself that. Yeah. Often, this is what goes on in my mind. Often with these sort of forums, whenever someone asks that, or whenever someone leaves a comment like that, the first thing I usually say to them is, "Oh, are you scrutineering? You have an abundance of understanding of how the votes are being rigged. Are you scrutineering so you can watch out for it?" And in most cases, it's a no. And so I don't have a lot of patience for people that tend to say that. Are there problems in our system? Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I did a whole interview with Professor David Flint, and he said, yep, we've got dead people voting here. We've got this, we've got that. But is it irreversible? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And we still have, it just means that instead of winning 50% of the vote, we need to win maybe 55 or 50 or 60% of the vote, Look, those are just example numbers. Don't take that to the bank. You kind of look like an older version of Topher. I couldn't say. I was like, Topher's in the Topher Field. He made Battleground Melbourne. Yeah. He ran in Tasmania for the Senate. But no, in Australia we've got a lot of problems where, for example, there are some beaches in Queensland where you've got houses on one side and you've got the beach on the other side of the road. And there are people that are voting and their address is on the other side of the road where the beach is. All along, thousands of them. And so it's like, whoa, okay. So it's not perfect. We've got a lot of things going, especially in Victoria especially, it's particularly bad. But as I said before, New South Wales is one of the last citadels, the last bastions of freedom in Australia. And I say this as someone who had the police come after me and charge me like $30,000 for my case and all of that. And so it's got a lot of work to do. But in terms of the vote, we can absolutely turn this around. We saw a lot of success in defunding the major parties in the federal election. As I said before, our How to Vote cards defunded the majors $1.4 million. And the election's coming up, it's just going to keep getting better. I can guarantee you the people in our movement, they're not tuning back into the mainstream. They're not. The government has systematically been pissing off different groups of people. We just happen to be the COVID round. Some people have been on about this for years, about the jabs. And I have no doubt, the climate change stuff will be one of the next things that come up. And yeah, so look, we've got a lot of big fights coming up, but the election fraud, it's not as bad in Australia as America. And even in America, they're making it work. So if they can, I think we can. Yeah. Cool. Right, thank you guys so much. Thank you so much. I'm going to wrap up the stream. For those of you listening online, all the hundreds of you that tuned in, give this a share. And for the thousands of you that see it after the fact, get it out there, share it to someone. When these tools come out, the best thing you can do to help me is, look, donating's great, but share this to everyone in your contact list. And I don't mean a Facebook share. I mean send it to all of your contacts in your messages, in your phone, everyone. That's the best way of networking, Rule 101 for networking. And that'll be the way we make a change in this state, in Victoria, And especially those transparency reports. People are going to love them. But thank you guys so much. Thank you, Kylie. Please put our hands together for Kylie. And I want to thank you for bringing this together. Guys, keep meeting. As I said, don't meet too often, but don't meet too little. Have a break over the summer, and we'll hit it again in late January, early February next year. And I hope you guys have an excellent Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.